Hello, thanks for tuning in and welcome to the pool party. I hope you can swim because we're definitely diving into the deep end with a huge splash of truth, facts, evidence, information, and proof. Swim. Say what you mean. It's talk about talking. How we listen, how we hear, how we speak, how we hear what we're listening to when we speak, how a listener hears what we're saying, if what we're saying, what they're actually hearing and or understanding. Is it clear? Swim. Say what you mean. Well, that's just the beginning of understanding, because after we get that understanding, how do we accept it? How we respond if it's not what we expect is paramount. Are you okay with the truth? Are you man, woman, human, or spiritual enough to accept the truth? Let's find out. Welcome to The Swimming Pool with your host, Travis Bridges.
Yeah, baby. Let's find out with your host, Travis Bridges, in 3, 2, 1. Good evening. It's another edition of The Swimming Pool, and you are not going to believe this. It has been a tremendous, awesome, and fantastic, busy, intense, but productive week for me thus far. Actually, the last 2 weeks have been incredulous in a mighty way. And as a matter of fact, today I was sitting around thinking, okay, we've got a little hurricane watch thing going on. And of course, I've got every excuse to not go on my live stream. And I was just talking just the other day about how people start stuff and don't finish. I'm guilty of it. I've done it many times in my life, but this live stream is something that I've been pretty much committed to. So I was thinking, okay, I'm just not gonna come on, or I'm just gonna come on and say we're gonna just do it next week. But at the very last minute, like an hour or so, it's like, I know what I can do. I can take one of my writings and read it and then just put it up and just share it with my guest. And then the other voice on this other shoulder said, well, why don't you do that? And I said, okay, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So that's exactly what I did. I have something coming up for you. I'm gonna take a break. It's gonna be short. It's gonna be a very short evening. So stick with me. Don't go anywhere, okay? I'd appreciate that. What am I going to talk about? Oh, it's election time. Hopefully your candidate won in whatever way you decided to vote. The main thing is that you did get out and vote. I went out and did the same thing. I did early voting. One of my friends called me and said, hey, he didn't call. He sent me a text and said, early voting is open till 7 o'clock. It was like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. I was like, no problem, I'm going. I took off and went down there in about an hour from start to finish. I was out and I cast my vote, and I didn't even get a sticker. I didn't want to show it off. I figured I'd show it off to y'all and tell y'all, yes, I early voted and I voted. So anyway, this is SWIM, S-W-Y-M. It is the acronym for Say What You Mean. It's important to do that. Do you know why? Because the Bible says, a good name is better than riches and gold. And in my old age, I believe that. It's something about doing what I say and saying what I do and keeping my word and keeping commitment and even being timely. You know, it's just become important to me. I guess sometimes people can take advantage of that, and that's okay. Go ahead, take advantage of it. You hope you sleep well at night. But it's just something that has become a part of who I am. Yeah, I like saying what I mean and meaning what I say and keeping my word on what it is I say I'm going to do and doing it to the best of my ability, even if it costs me. Hey, Christine, what's happening? Hope you're doing well. Anyway, I'm going to take a break. When I come back, I wrote something today that I was going to document later, but I'm just going to share it with y'all. Here's what's going to happen, though. In about 3 days, I'm going to take this down for personal reasons. Don't worry about why. but this won't be up for maybe 24, 48 hours max. Okay, so with that being said, thank you for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I'm going to take a short break. Don't move. I'll be back with what I have prepared for you. You have to listen to it now, and you're going to have about 24 to 48 hours to listen to it, because I'm going to remove it. Okay, don't move. Hold the spot you got. I'll be right back.
Knowing the difference and choosing wisely. It really is okay to be afraid. It's just not necessary. Adversaries are wired to make a lot of noise. It's their greatest weapon, as it invokes instant fear. We're all hand-picked by God, but it's our choice to be used by the devil. It is quite natural to be leery of a lower and or higher frequency. Knowledge and or wisdom insists that we either tune in or tune out. Fear is natural and normal. Fear can be our friend or our enemy. Why do we laugh after a joke or a prank that frightens us? Ever notice during that split second of fear that it's not funny at all? It's because fear is a natural reaction. It's not a natural response. Know the difference. It really is okay to be afraid. It's just not always necessary. Mighty Horn Music. Smooth jazz, top 40, R&B, inspirationals, and more. Live from the Hollywood Home Studio. Like, share, subscribe. And thanks for tuning in. Child molesters, rapists, bullies, and evildoers all have one thing in common. They all rely on their victim's weakness, lack of self-awareness, and a lack of support. The victims of these perpetrators also share common and like characteristics in that the fear of being ignored, humiliated, or unprotected is the primary drive of why we all, in some way, are imprisoned by our own lack of full and total consciousness. The physical act of these inhumane activities is how most victims are awarded the necessary attention of support in the form of legal charges that can be filed against the perpetrators if they can in some way be proven beyond a reasonable or shadow of a doubt. Society has a way of banding together in general to protect those who are threatened by and or are actual victims of these inhumane acts. The more vulnerable someone is, the more likely they are to receive the necessary attention and support. The elderly in particular, followed by those who are mentally unable to protect or defend themselves. Children, women, and even those who may have trouble expressing themselves clearly are considered the low-hanging fruit and or those who actually need to be protected. Are the stories that involve victims and perpetrators who fit all of these conditions and scenarios. Many of the stories are considered high profile and are brought to the public's eye oftentimes by force. Watching the news, reading through the papers, movies, and documentaries all expose most of the high profile cases and actually get the necessary attention and oftentimes even the justice necessary to help deter the perpetrators, as well as encourage potential victims that there is or may be hope. These stories and cases are considered normal and common because we see them and hear about them daily. However, all of these headlines are only a fraction of the circumstances that actually see the light of day regarding exposure, attention, and or justice. The others are what I believe is what gives temperature to society in general as it relates to the rhythm of how society in general proceeds. The mental and emotional mindset of everyone sets the tone of the world system as a whole. I am convinced that greater than 80% of the average population suffer in silence. Most people that I've encountered who occupy jobs or on a staff and or in a workplace report different levels of unhappiness as it relates to the balance of either their qualification, their pay scale, promotions, and clicks that are common amongst workplace environments. People go and come for years, live through or work through conditions that are less favorable for them in exchange for forms of financial security. People that participate in any form of unhappiness and or dissatisfaction in their common and everyday lives have been identified with those consistent with subconsciously digging their own graves, as constant unfulfillment naturally creates the moisture that eventually turns into deadly mold. In speaking for myself, I have experienced countless examples of living in fear. Even as a child, I was taught that we are not given the spirit of fear. However, as hard as it is to admit, I have lived the majority of my life highly concerned about not being heard, understood, or protected. I recalled recently being asked, "What are you running from?" or "What are you running to?" That question triggered a flashback of my entire life, as I thought of the images I recalled from the tragedy I witnessed on 9/11. I watched people jump from tall floors of buildings to escape a form of danger with the belief that a better chance of survival would be falling hundreds of feet. Subconsciously, my answer to that question would be the safety and protection all human life naturally seeks from the deepest part of our beings. From the most hardened criminal to the most innocent newborn infant, the desire and comfort for protection is natural and instinctual. Freedom of expression has to be included in the new hierarchy of needs. Therapists rely on research that supports avenues that opens opportunities for people to communicate. Interviewers, interrogators, investigators, counselors, therapists, and first responders all rely on testimonies and information that the freedom of expression creates to bring closure and direction. I believe my childhood experiences created an adult who was forced to strengthen my ability to express myself from the very fear of not being heard, listened to, or justified. I have a strong sense of pride in my ability to listen, hear, and understand and process information that I observe and investigate myself with a non-biased filter. The idea that truth and transparency can be overshadowed by technicalities, persuasiveness, and even influence has become the rudest awakening in my reality for me personally. At this very moment of expressing myself, I am overwhelmed with the reality that my freedom of expression and thirst for knowledge and information could be silenced at my expense or to my disadvantage. I am angry and frustrated as I hunger and thirst continuously for the freedom of expression and the openness of my vulnerability to be received with even the basics of respect and consideration. As I maneuver through my own personal experiences, I sometimes feel as if I am witnessing the grave digging and mold that I mentioned earlier, as it relates to my own personal experiences. Even if I am unable to save myself from what could very well be internal self-destruction based on the inability or refusal to control my own thoughts, perhaps my writing will bring awareness to someone that can indeed find justification in truth and transparency. The Bible often speaks of the strength found in struggles, and we have all personally in some way experienced others or ourselves get through and over trying times. However, the choice to embrace that fire that's guaranteed to consume us, or take the leap of death that gives us a possible chance, will forever be the mystery around what we all at some point run from or run to. SWYM. Swim. Say what you mean. As much as this information is designed to bring awareness to how we listen, hear, and process, it is also a form of therapy. The little person inside of all of us needs to be heard. As adults, even listening to ourselves is a form of healing, strengthening, and growth. It's okay to speak, talk, express yourself, and be heard, even if you're the only listener. If our testimony does anything at all for anyone else, that makes the continued effort worth the time. Get the words out. You'll feel better, and that's a promise. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
You know, sometimes it seems like all the good times are gone. But you got to keep on searching. You got to keep on keeping on. Keep on keeping on. For example, take me standing right here today. I would not be here with you if I believed the things that the people say. You got to keep on searching. Keep on searching. Keep it on